All right, let me share the screen. There you go. So for the incident response team so far in the month of February, guess who's winning? Guess who has the most incidents reported? Somebody on the call today? Who do you think?
Probably Kenya.
Raise your hand, Kenya. Raise your hand, Kenya.
I was going to go with Kate.
Let's take a look. So far, Kenya has done 27 reports. Now, I'm just sort of showing this to you because I have basically opted to slow down this month, and I'm not doing very much, which means that so far, Kenya and Kate and Siobhan are all going to get the I Beat My Mentors certificate at the end of the month.
Great.
I have done 6 reports, which is very low for me. Normally I'm up in the 30s, 40s, 50s, but so far I'm taking it easy in February, and I'm giving you all an opportunity to get that coveted I Beat My Mentors certificate, but you've got to work on it. Okay, so you can do it based on a number of different things. You can do something for the FTC, the Federal Trade Commission. You can do it for McAfee. Kenya, what are you reporting to? Where are you doing your reports?
So I keep getting a lot of PayPal stuff and Amazon stuff. So I'm using their emails and then the FTC website. McAfee is one, and I had may have been another that I've seen, but a lot of PayPal and Amazon for sure. I think I have one Netflix.
Okay. Do you report that to PayPal?
Yes. So I do the PayPal.
Okay.
Everybody doesn't have a separate email like FedEx. FedEx doesn't have a separate fraud email. They just reference you to the FTC report. So for the ones that have a separate fraud email, I'm sending it there and then the FTC. So essentially, I get 2 for 1 so far.
Very good. Very good. And that's the way to do it. That's the way to maximize the number of reports and literally minimize your time involved. So how about Amazon? Do you do the Amazon report as well?
Yes.
Okay. Amazon.com/report-a-scam.
No, I didn't do their report. No, I don't recall doing a separate report for Amazon. I think I just
sent
it to an email, fraud email.
Okay. If you do Amazon.com/report-a-scam, it will collect information from you, and then it will say, have you forwarded that to, and they'll give it like an abuse at Amazon.com or something, or whatever, phishing at Amazon.com. It'll ask you, have you forwarded to this email? And you either click yes or no. So that's part of that. But what I do is I go to Amazon.com/report-a-scam because I get a lot of ones that say your Amazon Prime membership is about to expire. Click here to renew. And I know it's not true because I keep track of our Amazon Prime membership. So that's a way to do it. And I'm just trying to encourage everyone, you can get good numbers here with a minimum of effort. You don't have to report everyone to the FTC and just the FTC. Do the FTC and Amazon, or the FTC and McAfee, like she said. I do the FTC and Talos Intelligence because I actually get some domains moved from unknown or good reputation. I get them moved down to questionable or even malicious by my reports. I actually start getting domains blacklisted. And that's fun because what happens is you stop those scammers from getting anybody to come into their scammer website. So for me, that's a big deal. I enjoy doing that because it just feels really good seeing that little response that says sufficient negative reports have been received to change this domain from good reputation to questionable reputation. I'm like, excellent, we're moving these guys toward a full blacklist so no one will allow their packets to go to that website. That's what we're looking for. So good, thank you. So I'm reminding everybody, participate as much as you can. Kate put a link there that I think everybody can take a look at. Kate, did you want to share about that link? AbuseIPDB.com.
Yeah, the another host that I've started using, and I liked it also. Where I can report our, maybe someone.
Okay, so as a reminder to everybody, every report that you file gets added to this list. So you could get, and I'm serious, you could get one spam or phishing email forwarded by your mom to you, and you could report it to the FTC. You could report it on this abuse site that Kate gave us. You could report it to Talos Intelligence. If it says you're, Amazon, you could report it to Amazon. That's 4 reports for 1 email. All right? So you have every opportunity to get on this list for the incident response team. Just takes a few moments of your time. And also remember that if you ask your family and friends to forward their stuff to you and say, I'll report it for you, you become the cybersecurity specialist for people in your sphere of influence. That's a big deal. They start trusting you. And don't try and get bigger than don't become a business or something when you're just getting started. No, just be a help. Share what you know, and then go on from there. If somebody says, well, what about this? Say, I am not sure. I had somebody send me a chat text yesterday on nextdoor.com, and they said, hey, I hear you're doing all this stuff on cybersecurity. What do you know about cyberbullying? And I said, I got to be honest, I don't know very much at all, because she's thinking about education and young folks who are really getting, into this cyberbullying thing, learning how or being affected by it. And she said, could you maybe do something on cyberbullying? I said, probably not easily, because it's not something that I'm familiar with, and leave it at that, Anyone else have anything to share? Okay. So with these, you notice we have our incident response team and CS-Sensei. We've got lots of videos, but some of them may be too long for you to forward to your family and friends. Get yourself into a position where you start going onto YouTube and searching for things like scams or cybersecurity, and just look it up, examine it, and then say, is this something that I feel comfortable forwarding to people in my spheres? Some of them are good. That one from Theo Joe is top notch. Theo Joe scams. And that's where I found it. New Scams 2024. New scams to watch out for in 2024. That one I forwarded to people in, there. I forwarded that to people in my sphere. Find something that you think is not too complex for them. Give them, baby spoonfuls, but be a help to those around you. It really does make a difference. So anyone else, any thoughts before we move on? Okay. By the way, I notice we have a visitor on, Anderson Patino. Good morning. Good to have you. And he's coming in from Arizona, so I think he saw my next door post. So good to have you. All right, let's see. What was I going to talk about next? Oh, yeah, sharing with your spheres. Definitely share videos like this Thio one. Okay, please. It's helpful to do that. And then, of course, for this site and any other site, anything else that you appreciate, share it. Like, subscribe, comment. You hear that all the time, but it really does make a difference. It really does make a difference. You can help me and us and this channel by liking and commenting and subscribing. Okay? Oh, slide deck template. That's one I ran over. Remember that we are in the midst of a competition right now. I have received exactly one submission, and you know who you are. I've received one submission for our slide deck template competition. I want, if anybody think you're pretty good at or can find slide deck templates out there, I want to get a slide deck template that we can start using for all of our CS-Sensei presentations, both here on the site as well as part of our Speakers Bureau, so that if you want to present to, let's say, your Democrats Club or your Kiwanis Club or your HOA or your Scouts or your Boys and Girls Club or anything, or your church, anything like that, you can download one of our pre-formatted slide decks. You put the slide up and you read the notes at the bottom, you become the cybersecurity expert. Okay? But I want these to all look professional. So I want us, everyone that is interested, I want you to take a look at this slide deck template competition. I'll copy the link and paste it into our chat. And anybody that wants to participate, please. I would love to have a number of these to choose from. In addition, even if you don't feel artistic, because I'm not that artistic, I want a group of us to be the judges. I don't want this to be Scotty's choice. So take a look at it, see what you think, and either volunteer to submit a template, and you do that by, putting together a template and then sharing it with me. And I'll make sure it gets to the right folks, or volunteer to be a judge for this. We're going to accept template submissions for another 30 days, well, 28 days, till the 15th of March. And then me and whoever volunteers to be a judge, and I will tell you that you could volunteer or you could be voluntold, because I don't want to be the only one that chooses this. I want us to feel good about this. And oh, by the way, it becomes part of your experience for your resume, because you can say, I put together a slide deck template for our competition. I won our slide deck template competition for our Cybersecurity Speakers Bureau. That's a big deal. Or you can say, I participated as a judge and helped to select a branding for our Cybersecurity Mentorship Speakers Bureau. See what I'm saying? It adds to your experience. So please volunteer. Please, please, please volunteer. All right? So there we go. Now let's go to the big thing that I was going to talk about today. Anyone else have anything before we move on? Okay, great. I want to talk about attack surface. This is a phrase that you need to know about because it's a concept. It's not, it's, if you learn the definition, that's only part of it. But you need to know about an attack surface. So anyone want to give me your understanding of what an attack surface means? Anyone, feel free to chime in. There's no wrong answers.
Attack surface means the machine, the server, the thing the hacker want to attack. That is called the attack surface, the target machine. That I'm thinking about.
That's a start.
I mean, attack. Yeah, I mean, it also means like it refers to vulnerabilities, the paths of methods used, like like attack vectors. So what kind of like techniques they can use to gain unauthorized access to the network or sensitive data.
Good. Keep sharing. Anyone else? Again, the reason we have this mentorship program is so you become familiar and can start speaking these things before you sit down in your first interview. So when you think of attack surface, what do you think of?
I was thinking that, some of the things I heard mentioned as well, as far as like the servers. I guess it's in the source that the attacker is using. So I guess it could be email, it could be a server, it could be an app that you download from an app store.
You're right on. You are. Every single one of you is correct to a point. When you think of attack surface, think of it as every single place where someone can attack you.
I'm sorry for interrupting you.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I just have. Can we say, like, for example, the attack surface refers also to the number of vulnerabilities? Like,
yes.
Is that
yes?
That correct? Like expression? Or?
That's part of it. That's part of it. But it's bigger, and that's why I want us all to speak to this. Here is the definition. It's the sum of the different points. Nerman, you mentioned this, attack vectors, where an unauthorized user, the attacker, can try to enter data to, extract data from, control a device or critical component or data in an environment. In other words, it's everything, everywhere, every system and vulnerability in that system. Your entire, if you think about it, if you have let's say a corporate network, the boundaries of that corporate network, a good word to use that I've heard is called your enclave, E-N-C-L-A-V-E. That is your enclave. This is where you do business. And everything within there might have vulnerabilities, but in addition, the entrance to that enclave, which is all of your network points, and the ports and protocols that are enabled for those network points, enabled to get into those particular components, those all work together to form your attack surface. And that's why we have to think in terms of the big picture, not just servers, not just apps. You were both spot on with that, but you have to be thinking about everything. Because if you think about, let's say you're protecting a college campus. If you keep locking the front doors and leave the back doors unlocked, that's where the attackers are going to come in. So your attack surface, you always have to be thinking everything. Everything. It all adds up, okay? And if you notice down here, the second sentence says, keeping the attack surface as small as possible is a basic security measure. So let's think about this in terms of what we have out in our environment. Let's say we have Windows servers and somebody wants to use Linux servers as well. That will probably double your attack surface. And then somebody says, well, I want to use IBM servers. And then I want to use Oracle servers. And then I want to use Microsoft Exchange servers. See what I'm saying? Your attack surface becomes very large, very fast. The more complex you get. And if you have perfect coverage for your Windows servers, but you neglect your Linux servers, that's where the attackers are going to come in. Make sense? So your attack surface is everything. And I'm going to show you, don't be fooled, don't get upset about the next slide. The next slide shows, if you think about it, all of the possible attack locations, all of the possible attack methods, and then the relative risk of each one. So it could be a whole bunch of different things. A bunch. Look at here. Printers. What if you have printer vulnerabilities that you haven't addressed, and you've got printers that can be reached from the internet? That's a big deal. So, this is just something to think about. Don't worry about how complex this is. This is the first time I've seen something this complex. So don't worry about it. But you've got a mail server here. You've got DNS here. You've got IoT devices. Remember, we talked about IoT devices like internet security cameras or your cell phones. Those are IoT devices. Cloud storage. We're all using things like Gmail and Google Docs and Outlook and Microsoft. What about third-party vendors? You hire somebody because of their great cloud software. You're now using their security as well, and you've got to rely on it. Here are the different ways that you could have an attack. Weak passwords. Here's a big one, malicious insider. We've always spoken about insider threats. And that's why you need to, if you go into your interview, the person who is interviewing you is trying to figure out if you're a force for good or if someday you're going to end up turning around and attacking them because they hired you and you learned more about them and where they're vulnerable. That's what goes through your manager's head when they interview you. What about spam, phishing, social engineering? Those are all client issues. So you have to start learning to train your customers. That's part of your attack surface. If you think about it, if you have a perfect infrastructure and a bunch of non-informed customers, one email that somebody clicks on could be the end of you, So it all works together. So don't let this make you feel like, you're never going to learn it all. I'm never going to learn it all right? So don't let this worry you. But what I'm saying is, think about your attack surface as being a combination of all of the different ways in which vulnerabilities and risks and attacks can come together and compromise your environment. Any questions? I just wanted to bring that up because just like multi-factor authentication, we may not think about, let me stop sharing. With multi-factor authentication, we probably didn't think about the ATM cards, but that's MFA. Questions? Does this help?
I think it helps to think about it in a more broader sense, like we were thinking of the internet with multi-factor authentication, not realizing we've been using it for a lot longer, like you said, with the bank card. So I think it helps us to put it kind of into perspective and really think about.
Yeah.
And that's information we share that people probably aren't thinking about when we try to give them examples of what multi-factor authentication is. I think the ATM card is a great, easy way to explain it to someone.
Right. Right, because you can't get to your ATM without this. You can walk up and push the buttons all you like and nothing's going to happen. So yeah, it's a good thought. This is something you have, and your PIN is something you know. Put those two together, that's multi-factor authentication. And the way I described it when I was in the men's club this week, I said, what you know is your PIN, and what you have could be, if you remember, Harminder, you mentioned this, you said you log in and it pushes to your phone. That's what you have. It says, is that you? Yes, it's me, and you log in. What you have and what you know. Great examples. And I do that when I talk about multi-factor authentication. I go, you know, this is a factor. What do you mean it's a factor? Put it in there. Have your bank send a message to your phone saying, is that you? There was a statistic that I heard from Microsoft, that said of the account compromises that they had seen in the last year, take a guess at how many of them had multi-factor authentication enabled. In other words, the ones that were compromised, what percentage had MFA? It's a low number. Take a guess.
5%?
10, something like that.
Lower.
1%?
Less than 1% of accounts that were compromised had MFA enabled. So that means when you speak to your families, friends, and neighbors, you can say things like, if you enable MFA, you have decreased your risk by 99% or more, just by making your bank talk to your phone before it logs you in. Really good idea. That's why, and I'm sure you've seen it. Google did this, Microsoft did this, and I'm sure, you know, my bank did it, my credit union, my investment firm, they have all come to me and said, please enable two-factor authentication. Here's how to do it. Click here and we'll step you through it.
I've also started to use like the authenticator apps where you get that randomized.
Yes.
As another step.
Yes.
I started to implement that on a lot.
I have also a question: why people are not doing? Because I know why people, how you mentioned it is a less than 1%. Why people don't want to do the multi-factor authentication? So why? So the people want to. For my experience, when I'm getting the calls, talking to the people, so people want to make everything easy. So when they want to try to log in anything, say they don't want to be complicated, they want to be get in the system very quickly. And when they forget the password, and when they're, for example, in the phone is not updated, the multi-factor authentication did not work because they need the latest operating system of the phone. So then they say, oh, these are you guys keeping things very, very complicated. It is hard to get in because they say, we are employees, this is my account, I want to use, but these people, this is not, they say this is not good. So the people avoid to do the multi-factor things, and because they want to be easy things, easy to remember the password, easy to get in the system, but they don't know the result when something is happened, how much they lost the company and everything.
Sure. I think you have identified one of the biggest challenges we have in cybersecurity, and that is trying to balance between security and convenience. And that is a constant struggle that will never change, but it also requires your customers to change their state of mind because, and again, you, Harminder, you should not be the one trying to impress upon them why they need to do this. It should be the CEO telling them that they will do it. Top down. That is the best way. And they can complain all they like to the CEO, not to you at the help desk. All right? That's the best way to do it. If you, the help desk, are trying to push better security, it's not going to work. The customers are going to push back and say, you're just trying to be difficult. Do I really need this? Look, I didn't do it yesterday and I didn't get compromised, so why do I need to do it today? You're going to get that all the time. So make sure security awareness and things like MFA logins are stressed by your management. If not, they're the ones that are going to, get in trouble. They're the ones that are going to be on the front page of the Washington Post when their data gets compromised. You aren't. So you raise a good point, Harminder, and that always happens. It always happens. People want convenience, but you want to make sure that they're able to operate safely. Anyone have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I have a question. Do you guys have a compulsory multi-factor authentication when you use government services?
Yes.
Oh, okay, great.
Yes, and in fact, if you remember well, you may not remember, back in 2014, the OPM was hacked and something like 22.5 million federal personnel records, including mine, were exfiltrated. Somebody stole 22.5 million personnel records.
And I think it
after that, what's that?
I said, I think it impacted job applicants because I got that email about that exposure, and they're still doing the free fraud detecting for me.
Yep.
As a
Yep. And oh, by the way, we'll talk about that. But Kate, the answer is yes. They started to require it. Multi-factor authentication. That's when in the federal government, it's not this, but they started to require the use of PIV cards, PIV, personal identity verification. It's the card that has the chip and your photo on it, and then it says what agency you're with or whatever. I have my PIV card, but it's over in my government laptop. So they started requiring PIV cards, and then in 2016, we had Petya, we had not Petya, and there was another one that was in there. We had the ransomware attacks that came from Russia during the war in the Crimea, where they attacked Ukraine and it got out, and there were $10 million or $10 billion worth of damage for other companies like Maersk. Maersk was really hit. Worldwide, Maersk computers were turned off for about 2 weeks because they were all infected. And, you know, if you can imagine all the ships and all the trucks worldwide that run with Maersk cargo sort of went and stopped because they didn't know, you know, am I allowed to go into this port? Well, we'll let you know. Am I allowed to drive my truck and drop this cargo off? Well, we'll let you know. And, you know, global trade came, you know, very close to a standstill as a result of NotPetya. That's when they started to say, for real, you got to use MFA. So yes, my federal government agency, for example, has been mandating MFA since 2015.
Do you mean
for
employees or for just usual citizens that using these services online?
Ask that question again.
I mean that. Do you mean that these MIV cards? Did you say MIV
cards? PIV card.
Yeah, are required only for employees who are working for government or for usual citizens who are using online services?
That's very good, and you are. Remember we talked about attack surface. You're right on there, Kate. You have your enclave services, and then you have your public services. One is to your employees, and the other is to the public that you serve. And they're two different enclaves. So different security measures. How for everyone within your enclave, you can specify everybody has to use cards. But obviously for external sources, you can't. You can't, you know, ship millions of people your cards. That's why, and Kenya, you were on the right track with that. I'm just pulling up my Google Authenticator. Look at how many different accounts I have in my Google Authenticator. ID.me is the federal government's authenticator app for external federal customers. So like for the Veterans Affairs or for the IRS or Social Security, they use ID.me as their external multi-factor authentication. Very, very good question. And that means you're thinking. But remember, there's a difference between inside the enclave and external to the public. So you have to come up with literally two different ways to do it. Very good question. Anyone else? Good stuff, folks. I hope you all learned some stuff here. This what we were discussing, this is the meat and potatoes of cybersecurity. The more you learn to speak to these things and just start putting it into your lingo, put it into your vocabulary, learn to talk about it, because then when you go to take your interview, you'll be more comfortable speaking about it. And you won't sound like you're just reciting from a book. That's why we're here on Saturday mornings. And that's why I recommend everybody participate, share. What about, you know, those sorts of things. It's all good. I want you to start being interactive. Otherwise, and Chris and I have said this many times, this is not the Chris and Scotty show. I would like maybe one of these days to be able to just sit back and have you all run the mentorship webinars yourselves. Speak among yourselves. What about this? How about this? This has been my experience. This is what I experienced. This is what I found. And all I do is run traffic. You know? Make sense? Okay, everybody. We're done for the day. Thank you so much. And for those of you that have Monday off, have a wonderful long holiday weekend.
Thank you.
Take care, everybody.